Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about tools. First of all, thanks for watching the channel. If you've not already subscribed and you like our content, think about subscribing, hitting that bell notification. It really helps us out on the channel. So the other day I was sitting there thinking about the just shy of 30 years that I've been in electronics and all the different tools I've used over the years and which ones have suited me well, worked out well, and which ones really haven't. And I started making a short list of tools that I really wouldn't want to be without. Tools that have served me well, never let me down. They're like the old friend. You just pick them up and you feel comfortable using them. They're just like a part of your body now you've used them so much. And which one of these I pick up and they've just always been there and always work. So I put together about 15, 20 tools here, hand tools mainly, that I wanted to go through real quick and just share those with you. Now, most of these, I think I found them on Amazon. I've got prices for some of them. The other ones that I don't, I'll find them in post-edit and stick them up here in the corner and let you know what you're looking at. Now, pre-warning, a lot of these are not cheap tools. They're quality tools. They're not cheap tools. Some of them, the value of the tool though, is almost unimaginable. Oh, if you use these kind of tools all the time and they never let you down, those are the tools you want. So let's jump right into it. So the first group of tools we're going to look at here are crimpers. Everybody needs a set of crimpers, whether you're working on trailer wiring, installing radios in vehicles, whatever. You need a good set of crimpers. Now these are your standard hardware store variety. I don't even know why I still have these around. These are pretty much junk. The jaws are the two sides are loose from each other. You could maybe tighten that rivet up, but these are pretty much just junk. These ones are slightly better. They're all right, but they're really tight. They have been since probably new. You know, they're okay. These ones have the curved jaws that are supposed to keep you from cracking the outside of a connector. These ones have little nubs sticking down. So these actually crimp a little better than these ones, but I still don't like these ones all that much. I don't know what brand these are, but anyway, they're junk. So we're down to these two. I've had these for a long time. These are, I think they say Super Clamp, Super Champ. I don't know what these are. I don't even know if they still make these. These have been actually pretty good crimpers for the style they are. They've got the strippers down here in case a lot of people like to have the strippers there, but it really doesn't matter much to me. But these have actually held up really well for this style of crimper. You can cut different size bolts off. These are kind of an all-in-one tool, and they work pretty good for what they are for this particular one. A lot of the hardware store brands, your mileage is going to vary. You may get 10 crimps, you may get 100, you may get 1,000, just kind of depends on the quality. But by far, these are my favorite crimpers. These are some Klein Crimpers. These ones have little nubs on both sides. So supposedly these are not for insulated terminals like that. But I've used them on insulated terminals for years, installed literally thousands and thousands of these and never had a problem. If it's somewhere where I think there's some slight chance that me using these on a crimp is going to cause a potential for a short. Here, I'll give you a quick example. These things, when you crimp down with them, it does put a pretty good indentation there. Pretty good indentation right there from that nub sticking in. But these things, you cannot pull these off once you get them on. I don't think I've ever had one of these fail using this style of crimper. Now I've had lots of these fail, but it's usually from using that style of crimper with these curved jaws. They just don't crimp nearly as well as these Klein ones. Now they do make different variety of these. They make one variety with one side of this for uninsulated and the other side for insulated. And I'll put a link to the description of those. We actually bought a couple pair of those at work. And that newer style, I do like the handles better on that one. They're more comfortable to use than these. These are old. These are probably from the early 90s. And they're still holding up great. But these by far are my favorite crimpers. I think these run, I want to say around 25 bucks or so. The other one I'm going to link is up around mid 30s, I think. But the grips are a little more comfortable on that one. So that pretty much, I don't know what else you can say about crimpers. But anyway, there you go. Those are my favorite. So the next thing we're going to talk about are these cutters. These are coax cutters. If you're dealing with coax or heavier copper cable, these are a must-have. They open up nice and wide to accommodate that. You can even cut 1/2-inch heliax with it. I don't recommend it because it smashes it down. It's kind of hard to deal with after you do that. But in a pinch, you can use these to cut heliax. The only thing with these is don't cut really hard material. Somebody in the past, it might have been me, hopefully it wasn't me, tried to cut an antenna rod with that and kind of jack those jaws up a little bit. But these have been really good crimpers. This particular brand is Burndy. I don't know if I can find these on Amazon or not. There's a couple varieties that are actually pretty good. I've got a set at work. I don't remember what brand those are. I'll figure it out. And those things, they just last forever. And you can just throw them in your toolbox. If you need to cut, they actually work pretty good for cutting rope too, if you actually need to cut rope. But they'll slice right through. I'll double this up a little bit, kind of simulate. I don't have a piece of coax in here. But it'll cut through wire just like that. So really good addition to your toolbox. These here, I bought these specifically for crimping. I think they're MC4 connectors for solar power or solar panels. These things I found work excellent for Molex pins as well. They're about the same design. I've got an older set of crimpers for Molex that I've lost. These work a lot better for the Molex plug. So if you're looking for a set to either put MC4 connectors on or Molex pins, these work really good. Now, these things, oh, what do I say about these? This particular pair I probably have had since about 92 or 3. These are a little bit newer. The handles are a little more cushiony on this newer set, but these are a 45-degree angle diagonal cutter. These are made by X-Lite. They're not cheap. They're actually pretty ridiculous price for these. These are about anywhere from $40 to $60 depending on where you look. But if you need to cut a lot of small stuff, working on circuit boards or anything like that, these things are a must-have, and these have lasted a long time. I actually lost these a few years back. Set out in the snow all winter. They got kind of rusty. I just kind of brushed it off, put a little oil on it, and they're operate just as good as new. Even as old as these are, and as much as I've cut, and I've cut things that these really shouldn't be cutting, like centers of 9913 and things like that. It's really not what these were made for, but these have withstood the test of time and they're still clicking. This older set, you can start to see a little light in between there, but I mean, the things are almost 30 years old, so they've held up really well. Now, I know a lot of people will say you can go to Harbor Freight and get the $5 set of these, and yes, you can, but I guarantee in 30 years they won't look like that. So really good set. And they also make a straight bladed one, which is quite a bit cheaper. I think they're around 20 bucks. They work really good as well. They make a bigger set of the straight jawed ones, the X-Lite does, that are also, I've got both sets of those in my work bag. They've held up really well over the years. I haven't had them as long as these ones, but they're still good, good diagonal cutters. Now these are my favorite set of needle nose pliers ever. I've probably had these since the early 90s as well. I'm not sure if these are X-Lite. I really can't find a brand name on these. If I can figure it out, I'll throw it in the link below. But these things have held up really well. The jaws have stayed straight. I've used them for things like I've said I shouldn't be using them on, and those have held up really, really well. And I'm pretty sure these are an X-Lite brand, but again, you can go buy cheap many times. If you're using tools like this all the time, like I've done over the years, you'll go through a lot of sets of cheap tools, or you can buy a good set to begin with and have it for 30 years. Now, as far as strippers go, there's a ton of varieties out there that are pretty good. These are some that I've had for a long time. A T-stripper. These have held up pretty good. They make a couple different sizes of them. I'll link them below. I'm not the end-all be-all on these. Here's another set that I have at work that I also like. I actually like them a little better than these ones. And they're a little more ergonomic. And I mean, what can you say? A stripper strips wire. They do a good job. Now, a lot of guys like the ones where you stick it on and squeeze and it automatically strips the wire off. And, you know, they're pretty fancy little automated things. And yes, I have tried them. I've used them. Long-term durability of those things, I've never found one that holds up for any length of time. So I've always kind of fell back to these. They always work. And so, strippers. Next on my list are a set of Klein Electrician scissors. These things, if you're doing any amount of telco wiring, small wiring, these things are the cat's meow. They work great. It's a lot safer than a knife when you're stripping wire. You just put these things on. You can just quickly, how to get a piece of wire. Let me see if I got a piece of Cat 5. Okay, so here's a really crummy piece of Cat 5 wire. So these things, you just, it also works really good. It works great for sheathing. Now, I'm not nearly as good at this as some guys. I've worked with some guys that worked for AT&T and other telco companies. They can strip wire like crazy with these things. But they also work pretty good for just stripping small wire. Highly recommend those. They're not that expensive. There's several varieties of them too. Some of them have notches up here to help strip the small wire. But anyway, definitely worth the 20 or so bucks for one of these if you're doing small wiring. So then we have these. These are, you know, your typical Ratchet Box End Wrenches, kind of like a gear wrench. I've had this particular set, man, I bet you since 1990 I bought these. These particular ones are made by Ace Hardware. I don't even know if they make them anymore. I'll link to some other ones that I know are made. But these things, if you're doing any amount of tower work, these things are one of the best tools ever invented for tower work. I like these double-ended ones. It's got 1/2 inch on one side, 9/16 on the other. The next size up, I think, is 5/8 and 3/4. I don't remember. 11/16 and 3/4. It seems like they kind of jump a size. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, very handy tools. I like the gear wrench stuff. I've got some of that. But up on a tower, I like these double-ended ones like this. Mainly because I don't have to carry as many wrenches and there's not as much weight up there. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. I like this kind that you can switch direction. I've got the other kind as well that you can't. You just got to flip the wrench over. But these I use all the time up on a tower. And these, surprisingly, these Ace Hardware ones, I don't know where these are made. Where does it say? Made in Taiwan. These things have held up extremely well. So good wrenches. I'll try and find some other ones that I use at work that I know are still made. Again, I don't even know if they make Ace Hardware ones anymore. So these things, what can I say about these? I've been hesitant to even bring these out. This set is not as old as my original set. I got all the pieces out of the other set right here, but the sheath for it kind of went bad. I left it out in the sun too long and it kind of cracked on me. But these things, they're kind of expensive, but to me, it's a huge time saver. And as long as I keep the set intact, I know when I go out into the field, I've got at least this with me. Now, the one I use at work is a little different than this set, and I've got a personal set just like that, but it's actually at work right now because my work set, somebody lost a couple of bits out of there, so I brought my personal one in to use it there for the time being. But this blue set that you're looking at, what I really enjoy about this is it's got all these different nut drivers, screwdrivers, things that I need when I'm out working. Plus it's got a nice little crescent wrench and a decent set of diagonal cutters. These are made by X-Lite. They're good quality. And like this, you just take whatever nut driver you want, put the handle on. You can get T handles for these if you want. There's even a little adapter to put it into a hex so it fits better into a drill. I've used these hundreds of times in drills when I'm out in the field and I don't have the little adapter with me. I'll just chuck that up in a drill and you can use these as a driver. So I can't stress this enough how much I've used these sets of tools, and they've held up very well. Like I said, this is a little bit newer set. This one's probably only about 10 years old. My other set, I bought it in the early 90s, maybe even 89 when I wound up with that set. Back then, they were not as expensive as they are now. This little set, I want to say, is scary as it is, about $120 or so, I think. The bigger set, you're probably up over $220 or so. But the bigger set, it's well worth it. If you do any amount of field work, you can just roll that thing up, throw it in your backpack, and you can probably get about 90% of your work done with just that little toolkit. Throw in a set of crimpers with it, and you can get a whole heck of a lot of stuff done. Really recommend those little guys. I know they're fairly expensive, but they hold up really well. The other nice thing is they got all kinds of different fitting or bits you can put in these. These happen to be just Allen hex head. You can get Torx. You can get all kinds of things for these. You can get them very small too to work on small things. Again, really, really handy all-in-one packages with these little X-Lite toolkits. These are also made by Klein. They're an 11-in-1. I think they make an 8-in-1 and a couple others. This 11-in-1 works pretty darn good. The original ones Klein came out with, I didn't like them because the bits fell out too easy. I was constantly losing the bits with those things. These newer variety, I've bought several of them. They've held, I probably had this one for 3-4 years. And for me and a screwdriver, that's pretty good because I usually wind up losing them. But this thing, you've got all kinds of different bits. That you can use here. Very handy little tool. And it can double function as a nut driver. I think you can do 1/4 inch, 5/16, and I think this end is 3/8. Very, very handy little tool. You can throw that in your toolbox as well. And just got to remember how all this goes back together now. Sorry. Talking and trying to figure out what I'm doing is not a good thing with me. But you can get a whole heck of a lot done with just this little guy. Klein 11-in-1. I'll leave a link below for it. You can find these also at Home Depot or any big hardware store. Yeah, they work really well. So I went to edit the footage this morning and figured out that I'd missed a couple items. I looked all over for this footage and I'm like, where did it go? And then it dawned on me I actually hadn't filmed it. So we're going to film this morning real quick. These are some knives, some cutters that I really couldn't cut out of. Things I use these for a lot of different things. I think they're originally designed for cutting piano wire. These particular ones came in a kit for antennas to trim their stainless steel whip, like this. If you've ever cut one of the high quality stainless steel whips with something like that, you'll get through it. Or even side cutters like these, you'll probably not get through that. Even some of the better ones of these, you have a hard time with. And you definitely don't want to cut it with something like that, like I mentioned before. That's how those ones got boogered up. Somebody tried to cut one of these. So these cutters, now I'm not saying that they're just cut through like butter. You do have to have some hand strength with these things. But like a regular, there's smaller sets of bolt cutters that work pretty good for this too. But these fit nicely in a toolbox. And so if you're out in antennas or whatever, these cats meow. As you can see, it takes a little bit of hand strength to cut through these rods. This isn't one real thick. This is kind of a medium-sized rod, but there's no way you're through that. something like that. There's just no way you're going to do it. These work really good. Now I've tried it. Say they're rated to cut like up to a 6mm bolt or something. I've been cutting bolts with the. Boy, I don't think you could get that. Let's see if we can actually cut through that. It's cutting, but boy, that's tough. That's a 5 bolt. Oh man, oh. It's going. So yeah, so you can cut through that. That was a 1/4 inch grade 5 bolt. So yeah, so you can cut, but it's gonna take a lot to do it. But nice little cutters. Can't go wrong with them. I don't know the price off the top of my head, but I'll link them in Amazon. It's kind of dawned on me. I wonder if they cut a screw like this. Like imagine, and they will. Now, the other thing I mention is knives. Now I'm not a big knife guy that you know, the big knives, all these knives that cost like hundreds of dollars. I'm not. I lose them too quick. This is the most expensive knife I've ever bought. This is a little Shaw. This wound up being a favorite knife I've had. Again, I haven't owned a lot of expensive knives because I lose them fast. But this little knife has done an excellent job for me. I really enjoy using this knife. I've had it for a few years now, and I really like the one-handed, especially if I'm doing tower work or whatever. You don't always have 2 hands for your. It's really nice to be able to open that and do whatever you want. I usually clip up on my climbing harness. Works really. It holds a fairly decent edge, and it's pretty easy to sharpen. I've got a good edge on it several times, so I really like that little knife. But I'm working with a wire. This is how knives. I start cutting a lot of wire, doing things really shouldn't be doing with a knife. So I usually carry one of these around when I'm working. Sometimes I just carry it around anyway, with these replaceable utility knife blade. Oh, this thing's got gummed up. You know, it's this. I've had this one for quite a while. Now I've had a number of these things. Well, a few of them. I've probably had over 20 of these things over the years. But this has stayed around the longest. And the reasons I like this one. One, it probably locks open. So some of these that want to close your hand way too easy. This one stays open pretty good. And I can carry blades inside of it. So if I'm out doing a lot of work, especially working with coax, hard lines and whatnot, instead of booking up my good knife, I carry these. Since these are expendable blades, I don't care. Just throw it away, put another blade on, away you go. This one's made by Sheffield. I found it at a local hardware store. I've also found them on Amazon. But yeah, this is a little thick. My only complaint with this, it winds up, if you look at those 2 knives, this one's considerably thicker. But for doing the day-to-day stuff where you don't want to be doing your blade cutting through metal and stuff, this is a real good knife. Okay, so on to the last and my favorite tool that I'm going to show you today. This little Weller Pyro pin I've had since probably about 94, 95. It's held up really well. Really beat the heck out of it. The case has been destroyed. Kind of scabbed it back together, but it's out in the tool box. It's not in very good shape. But this thing has held up really well. I've had to change the tip on it one time. You can get different attachments here. If you want it as a little heat gun, they've got a little shield thing that comes in that you can use just as a straight heat gun. I usually wind up using the exhaust out of it right there. If to use it as this one as a heat gun, I just use that exhaust. It works pretty good. As long as it's not really heat shrink, it works really good. Now I've tried several different brands, especially at work. Went through multiple gyrations trying to find something better. But always come back to this guy. This one has just really worked really well over the years. Now the one drawback to these is you actually have to carry a lighter with you to light these. So turn it on a little bit. The flame to be inside on the outside like that. There it goes. Just let it sit there and warm there for just a little bit. Once it starts glowing, it's grabbing up through this little tube. I let that on long enough. Usually it's just, 20 seconds or so. Sometimes I get a little impatient and shut it too soon and the fire goes out. Yeah, it's getting hot. So this thing always for me. And if you need to, if you're out of or butane, you just need a little bit here on the end. And what surprises me about things is I leave these sitting in my toolbox or my bag for months and come back and it's still got butane in it. As evil as this thing is, it still has a butane fine in these. Now, this does get hot, and if you let it warm up, this gets plenty hot enough. If anybody's ever soldered 259s on, you need a pretty decent solder iron to do it right. Little puny ones will just cause you nothing but headache, and you can wind up causing you to overheat your coax because you're sitting there with the heat on it forever trying to get it hot enough. These things get plenty hot enough to solder PL259s on. I don't know how many PL259s I've probably soldered with this thing over the years. A lot. But excellent little solder iron. Now, it does have, if you like having to carry around a lighter, they've got this variety. I've lost the piece that goes in here because this broke, but it will still light. In fact, I took it apart to figure out why it was lighting. Then it started lighting, and I lost the little piece that went in there. You can see that lid. These ones, if you got that piece, they light. They kind of do this. I don't know why they will, but they do. I thought they would. Great. In fact, I bought a couple of them to replace these, and I hate these things. When they work, they're great. I'll say that. When they work, they're really good. You don't have to carry the lighter with you. My problem with them is I've had a lot of problems with the igniters on them. I've went through, at work, I went through four over the years. Just because, a couple of years down the years beating around in your 20 blocks, they won't, the igniter goes out in them. And that's probably replaceable. Basically, half the time I'm out in the middle of the field, out in the middle of nowhere, trying to get something repaired, and this thing quits on me, and I just throw it. I got the one that I know works every time. So anyway, my favorite tool, I'm not exactly sure on the price. It's probably, I'm guessing $120 now for one of these. But again, it's what you get, what you pay for. Okay, that's about going to wrap up tools for today. A little long-winded about tools, but I thought it was a good idea to share these tools that if I like them, I'm going to buy the identical and it's going to go right back in my tool bag. These are tools that prove self over time that I enjoy using, and a lot of these are a little more expensive, so it's kind of hard to justify like the rollout tool unless you're actually into electronics work. But those have saved my butt a lot over the years. Always keep one of those rolled up into my flight bags. Fly out to a radio site. Always at least those tools, and I can get a lot of work just that little bit of tool to me as well. So take it for what it's worth. Excellent success with these, and I would share those with you today. There was something else I was going to mention. Oh, meters. We could go a lot of different directions with this whole thing, talking about meters and the different things. And I will admit, for years I was a meter snob. If you have a fluke or something equivalent to it, you didn't know what you were doing. But the average guy, there's a decent meters there. It pops into my mind is almost every year, Craftsman, before they went under, would have sale on, around Christmas time, these little meters for $9, $10, $15. I don't remember the exact cost. And I've 5, 6, 7 of them running around, and I bought them. Well, if one dies, they're cheap. I'll just replace it. Most of them are still in edges. I broke two of them out. Keep it in the box. It's always been underneath the truck seats. Those things up really well, and they're fairly accurate. So Yeah, for the average guy, there's tons of good little meters there and got them. A lot of them are made in China, but no, probably some of these tools I mentioned today are now made in China as well. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. I'm hoping tomorrow I can go out and visit maybe a mine or so watch for that. Watch for an upcoming video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video.